Hey, thanks for checking out this week's video. First of all, I just want to say sorry for it being so long since my last video. I've had a lot of stuff going on that I can't show just now, and on top of that I had a really bad throat for like a week or two, and it was just too hard to do voiceovers. This is one that I've wanted to do for a while, but I'm coming up to 1 year on YouTube. Hooray! So I thought, what better a time to look back at my old stuff and perhaps talk a bit about why I moved away from digital, because you'll notice all my old stuff is digital. While I'm on the topic of the 1 year anniversary, I've put a 20% discount code on my Etsy shop where I sell all of my originals. So if you fancy any of that, go check it out. I'll put a link below. Now I was going to do this video all as one, but it ended up being quite long, so I've put it into two parts. This first part will be covering the really old stuff, so I hope you enjoy. Now some of this stuff is still available on the internet. In fact, my very old stuff, the very first website I ever made, is still live. So you can go visit that if you want. I'll pop a link down below in the description, but I warn you, it's not very good because it was made for much smaller monitors back then. What was it, like 2003, 2004, something like that. So when I first started doing art, I was doing a lot of these online paintings that were a part of a forum. Basically, it was like a really simple painting program, like pretty much like Microsoft Paint. So it was really bad, it was like really pixelated, it was super limited. The only sort of special thing about it was that you could have layers, which was a pretty cool feature, especially back then when I started drawing. It was not this board, that sadly the one that I visited is no longer open. It was called the Art Corner. The idea of these paint chats was that once you'd finished, you could post them to a forum and people could comment and all sorts of stuff. So this was made back June the 8th, 2003. Some of these I did with a mouse, because back then I did not have a tablet. And in fact, the technology back then, unless you had like a lot of money and you went for Wacom straight off, there wasn't much available and it was all really pricey. And back then I was a teenager, so I didn't have any money really. Like I had to rely on birthdays and things to get stuff that I wanted. So I first started drawing digitally with a mouse, and not just like the regular mouse you'll get. If you look at the bottom, it's like a laser. But back then they were rollerballs. A rollerball mouse, and it was like this little ball inside, and it would get hairs and stuff trapped. Basically they were rubbish. And that's what I learned to draw digitally with. And so for quite a few of these, actually I was quite impressed by some of them, because like even with my much better quality mouse nowadays, I don't think I could replicate these. Right, here's another one. This was done, I called it Worlds Apart. I can't remember the concept sort of idea behind it. This was done, I want to say this was done in Photoshop actually, because I remember this back bit was like the really basic filters, like a cloud effect. I was so proud that I could do that, and it's awful. So 2004, this was also created with a mouse. Just want to comment that I thought I did a really good job with this. I remember at the time trying to make like this sort of shiny material, and I felt like I'd done a good job. This was another one of those online painting forums with a really simple paint program. I was really happy with this one as well. Gara. I was super into my anime, so I was doing a lot of fan art. Yeah, this is one I was particularly proud of. When was this one? 23rd of February 2004. Now this I think was the most effort I'd ever really put into a digital painting. This was back in 2004. April 11th it says. And now if anyone was sort of like around this time really into Naruto, someone had created these videos called True Naruto Style, and it was basically just taking clips from Naruto, doing like a funny voiceover, and it was like a parody basically, and it was quite big. And in one of these episodes it was of Gaara drawing these guys as his best friends, which anyone who watches Naruto knows that these guys do not get on that well at all, and he hates everybody. I found that particularly funny, and I thought I'd do a fan art of it, so I put in quite a bit of effort. Although I will say the background looks pretty good, but that's because I painted over a screenshot from one of the Naruto episodes of the forest, so I can't really take all that much credit for it. Now this was my first original piece of art that I put a lot of effort into. Again, this was back in 2004. Yeah, so you can tell these are really old because you can't zoom in, there's just no quality. And I also didn't really know what size to work in, so And even if I did, I probably couldn't because my computer wasn't that great. But yeah, I was really proud of this. This was a complete original piece of work, and it's why she is a part of the website. Also, this was around the time I was very inspired by Kyung Tae Kim. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right anyway. That really, like, I can still see it now, even looking at this piece, that the influence from that really shows in this. This was inspired by an artist who was quite big on DeviantArt back in the day. Was it 2004 as well? She was called Cone Monster. Now, Cone Monster is still on DeviantArt, but she does not have any of the old artwork still up. In fact, I used to link to her old website. It was this one right here. This is the only bit of her artwork I can still find on the internet. So she does not draw anything like this anymore. But I was super into her work. It was a little bit dark, and they were all like these really strong females. And yeah, so this was kind of like a fan art that was inspired by her characters, basically. And I remember this, check out that background. This was done in Photoshop as well, although at this point I think I got my first tablet, graphics tablet. Now, it was not a Wacom, it was one by Trust, and oh my goodness, it was the worst thing I have ever used. It used to bug out so much on my computer. It had like these buttons at the side where you could create shortcuts, it could open files and all sorts. And it just used to go crazy. Whenever I plugged it in, it would open programs, it would close programs. It just had a mind of its own, and I could never use it. So, but this must have been the time when I actually took that out and maybe got my very first Wacom, which lasted me a very long time, by the way. Now, this one I particularly wanted to show because there's a huge mistake. Now, back then, was this one 2005? Yes, it's 2005. Very much again inspired by Kyung Tae Kim. Although a little bit darker and more gothic. But I had a really bad monitor, and I could not see like the blacks and gradients and things all too well, and I remember really struggling with it. And you can see all these like little patches. This was all supposed to just be a solid black, but that's how bad my monitor was back then because I could not see these. And I remember purposefully going over and over and over, and apparently it did no good at all. This also, if I remember correctly, was when I was using a program called Open Canvas. I miss that program. You could connect with friends and you could all draw like on the same bit of canvas. It was really fun, and it was free. And then this is the last one I have from this time period. I guess was the best of my sort of skill level back then. This was 11th of February 2005. Again, very, very inspired by Kyung Tae Kim's work. But I remember like being really proud of this background. Again, I was proud of the backgrounds because I didn't like doing backgrounds. Even now, I don't like backgrounds are a very weak point for me. And then it was at this point I'm at the end of college, and I actually become really ill. I fall ill with something called ME, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. I don't know if I've really spoken about it too much on the channel. So this is where I stopped doing art for a while. I think I took 2 years out between college in the UK, by the way, just for anyone who isn't aware, is a school you go to between the ages of like sort of 16 and 18. It's before you go to university, so it's not the American style college, which would be our university. During my time at uni, I actually studied animation, and although we did do drawing and concept stuff, it wasn't as much. And also I had a really hard time sort of adjusting with this disability, because before this point I was still living with my parents and they helped out quite a lot. So a lot of the work that I did I didn't like, and I deleted a lot of it, and I've thrown a lot of it away, which really sucks, but I do have a couple, 2008 and 2010. So now this one, this was for a figure drawing class my first year in university. I can't even remember what the actual coursework was, but we had to draw something. Now I was mostly into digital art, so this was hard, and this was A3 sized as well, and I don't normally work this big. I do recall shading this and doing more work on it, but I must have hated it because I couldn't find any copies of that. So I mustn't have bothered scanning it in or something, I don't know. But I remember being quite happy with it. At least, like, I really enjoy his shield. Even now, I quite enjoy his shield. But the faces, my goodness. What's with those noses and the eyes? So awful. Wow. Okay, moving on. Now, this one was a digital piece. This is definitely when I had a Wacom. I had a Wacom for a while at this point. One thing you may notice is that neither of them are coloured or anything, and that's because I was scared of colour for like the longest time. Really scared of colour. Even now I'm a bit hesitant with colour, I'll be honest. But back then I just really enjoyed working on line art. Not even like giving it any sort of form, no sense of 3D. I just like to do lines, which, you know, is okay, but it's really dull looking back at, I'll be honest. I wish I'd pushed myself more, but you know. This particular one, I feel like I very vaguely remember. I feel like it was maybe a competition, or it was at the very least somebody else's character, and there was like an event on that other people might have been drawing it, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna give it a go, I'm gonna try push myself, and I was quite happy with the line art. Her face is awful, I'll be honest. That hand's pretty good though. I remember really struggling with this. Oh my goodness, I struggled so much with this because she's like at a profile angle, and then this should have been profile too, but I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted it to look, so I did it more 3/4 and then it didn't match up, and I just was like, you know, F it, I'm going with it. Yeah, I really wish I could have taken that further. Now at this point, after and during university, I really gave up with art because I found the more that I learned about art, the more I realised there was to learn, and the bar was so much higher and so far away from where I was. It really put me off, which is a shame. You should never let that put you off, because you're only going to get nearer to it by pushing yourself further towards it, you know, not stopping. So, as you see, the next year is 2013. Now, this is actually the year that my son was born. I was quite ill while I was pregnant, so that was another excuse not to do any art. So I'm going to show you this one. You can see a huge jump in skill level, which even I was like amazed by, because although I had stopped drawing, I had stopped practicing, I didn't do any art whatsoever for a really long time, I was still absorbing art. I was subscribed to this magazine called Imagine FX. Even now my Facebook is full of other artists, and I was constantly absorbing all this information. I was still even watching like tutorials on how to get better, but I just wasn't practicing. Then this one particular day I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna give it a go because I love art and I cannot stop thinking about art. All I do is like wake up in the morning, I check my news feed, and I just want to absorb art all the time. I feel like to give up on something that you think about every single day is a mistake. I thought, why not, let's give it another go, and I made this. Now, one thing that I was really sort of adamant on doing was trying to push myself to keep up with art, to keep on with it, not to give up, because this is like the second time that I'd kind of given up, but I still couldn't stop thinking about it. I still wanted to draw, I still wanted to create, I still wanted to be a part of this world. Oh, I feel like Ariel. I'm gonna burst out into song in a minute. Anyway, so one of the things I did was I took this image and I contacted that magazine I was talking about a minute ago, Imagine FX, because it was that magazine that really kept my inspiration going, and it actually got featured as a star letter. So that was really cool. I remember this because I had a subscription at this point. I remember this magazine coming through the door and being like so excited. And then after that I stopped painting again. Damn it, Hannah. Although that was more because I had a young child. Like I said, this was the year that my son was born, and on top of having ME and stuff, it was quite a struggle. So, and most importantly, you know, family comes first. As he started to get bigger and was easier to take care of, and I was getting more sleep, and one of the things I started off by doing was, funnily enough, a portrait of my son in 2016. So that brings us to the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed seeing all my really old and not so great art. In part 2, I will be going over the portrait work that I did and personal pieces from when I was live streaming and things like that, and right up until the point I stopped with digital art. So I hope you'll join me next time. Until then, bye!